YouTube, what's the word? We got this video. I've been seeing this bitch all over. This case is terrifying. Sydney Wilson. Apparently, some girl that got killed by the cops and shit. You know what I'm saying? And shit, we about to get straight into it.
Hi, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. I want to try and get to 1 million subscribers. Thank you. This case takes place in the USA in September of 2024. Recently, an incredibly shocking and nightmarish video clip has been making its rounds on social media. The police cam footage shows a male officer and a woman. The woman appears to be in a state of murderous rage, leaving the officer no option other than to defend himself by any means necessary. Sydney Wilson was a 33-year-old woman. She was born in Pennsylvania but lived in Reston. She graduated from a high school in Washington, D.C. before going on to earn a bachelor's degree from Georgetown University. It was in Georgetown University where she pursued her passion for basketball, as she was able to attend on a basketball scholarship. From what I can tell, she excelled in the sport, as she was the team captain. Sydney stood at over 6 foot tall, so of course she was the perfect height for such a sport. In May of 2013, Sydney won an award for community service excellence. Following her graduation, Sydney took on a number of jobs before she landed a position as an operations manager for JLL Mid-Atlantic. In one post on LinkedIn, Sydney wrote, "A personal goal of mine in 2024 is not to be humble. I do a lot of really great and noteworthy work, and I am responsible for being my best advocate." By all accounts, Sydney seemed like she was doing well in life. According to those who knew Sydney, they later explained that she loved children. It's possible that Sydney had gone through some hardships in her life, as she was also an inspirational and motivational speaker. She would speak to young girls that were coached by her former teammates and aspired to play high school and college basketball. This seems to be something that Sydney took great pride in and gave her a sense of purpose. However, all of this good would tragically come to an end when, according to some sources, Sydney's mental health issues began to cause some problems. On Monday, the 16th of September 2024, at approximately 10:17 a.m, an officer by the name of Peter Liu picked up his police radio. On the other end, the operator informed him of a job to go to, involving a woman who was mentally unwell and was in an agitated state. The operator informed Peter of the situation, that the police force had received a request from a mental health professional to conduct a welfare check on a 33-year-old woman named Sydney Wilson. And so Peter set off to a block of apartments at Sunrise Valley Drive in Reston. At this point, Peter had been part of the police force for over 14 years, and he was trained in crisis management, so he would have been one of the most qualified officers to attend.
I feel like every cop should. I feel like there's a lot of cops that don't know how to handle that type of situation. When it's like that, it's a lot of cases. Like, there's been a lot of cases I've seen where motherfuckers is like not mentally right, and then the cop is not trained to handle it, then they kill them or just don't go right. Type shit.
Attend this call. In this area, these sorts of welfare checks are usually done in tandem with another mental health professional. However, the usual co-responder was unavailable to assist Officer Liu, as at the time they were on another call. Although, according to those who have since assessed the situation, this would end up being a positive thing. Peter Liu arrived and he knocked on Sydney's door. Sydney opened the door smiling, but she immediately closed it. Undeterred, Officer Liu continued to try to speak to her through the door, and after approximately 2 minutes, Sydney opened the door again.
Hi man, I'm Officer Liu.
How
are you? Oh, Jesus Christ. Back up! No! Over here! Back up! Over here! Over here! Hey man, I can ask you to do it. Please back up. Oh yeah. Back up. Oh, back up. Back up.
As Sydney opened the door, she said, "How are you?" before quickly using the knife to slash the officer. At this point, Sydney lunges towards the officer, who backs away saying Jesus Christ. The officer pleads with Sydney, telling her to back up. Upon raising his weapon, Sydney does back up, but only for a moment. Shortly after, she refuses and continues to walk towards Officer Liu. Holding the knife above her head in a threatening manner, Sydney continues to walk towards Officer Liu in a way that looks right out of a cliché horror movie. Sydney then slashes the officer again as he screams back up. The officer was able to retreat after shooting Sydney twice. However, she still continued to attack him in an incredibly violent manner. In that moment, Officer Liu decided to shoot again. Sydney was shot a total of 3 times before she collapsed to the floor. Officer Liu then grabbed his radio to call in for assistance, but as he did this, blood began to pour from his wounds. In just a few moments, his entire police radio is completely covered in his own blood. After calling for backup, Officer Liu then approached Sydney. Blood can be seen on the footage just pouring from him. Sydney was still alive, so Officer Liu asks if she is okay. However, Sydney is too injured to reply. Only moaning can be heard as she clings on to life. With the loss of blood, Officer Liu goes to the ground. Other people who lived in the apartment block begin to come out and ask Officer Liu if everything is okay. The officers and medics soon arrive on the scene. Other body cam footage shows Officer Liu lying on the ground in a horrific state. Blood is literally streaming down his face as the medic treats his wounds. This is where the footage ends. Sydney Wilson was rushed to hospital. However, shortly after her arrival, she was pronounced dead. Peter Liu lost some blood, but thankfully, his injuries were not life-threatening and he was treated for his wounds. There is an image online that can easily be found, which shows Officer Liu's wound to his head. The image is quite graphic, so if you're squeamish, don't look. Following the death of Sydney, her old college basketball team shared a post in which they said that they were mourning the tragic loss of Sydney Wilson and said that she was forever part of the team. Sydney's funeral was then held in Pennsylvania on the 5th of October 2024. Her obituary says, "Sydney's legacy of friendship, empathy and love will live on in the hearts of everyone who ever met her." However, footage of the incident was then shared, and since this, the basketball team have been slammed and criticised, with many telling the team to take down the post. When the death of Sydney came to light, people began to look at her various social media pages. On her LinkedIn and Facebook pages, she had posted about receiving a certificate in mental health training in 2024. She wrote, "I am proud of this. I became certified in adult mental health first aid after 8 hours of necessary training. As a personnel manager, mentor, friend, big cousin, and daughter, it's important to be able to help and identify challenges in myself and others. I think this is the greatest act of love." The Chief of Police, Kevin Davis, then spoke with the media.
He did the things that we train him and expect him to do. If you're threatened like that, if you can tactically reposition yourself, do it. If you can use distance, use it. If you can seek cover and concealment, seek it. All those options just weren't available to him, and he was being simultaneously attacked.
Davis then went on to say, "Any loss of life is something we all mourn. The person whose life was lost in this particular case is no different. She has a family and friends and loved ones who loved her very much. They are grieving and upset. We will pray for them, and our thoughts are with this particular family." Kevin Davis went on to say that it could have been much, much worse. As I said earlier, the usual co-responder was unavailable at the time as they were on another call. Kevin Davis believes that the clinician not showing up on the scene prevented the incident from becoming even deadlier. As if Sydney were to grab the clinician first, Officer Liu would not have been able to fire his weapon right away, and the clinician would have likely been killed. Then, the footage made the rounds on social media. This case has divided many. There are a few people who defend Sydney. One person said that Sydney should not have been killed, but should have been stunned with a stun gun, with one person saying that because she was black, they killed her, with other people sticking up for Officer Liu, saying that she was not the victim and that she attacked the officer with the knife first. The police have since come forward and said that
motherfuckers be saying the dumbest shit on the internet, but to be real though, like, she should not have did what she did, you know? Like, she obviously not mentally right. So it ain't like, I guess you would just be like, oh yeah, fuck her. She a bad person, I guess, but she just should not have did that shit. Like, he ain't do nothing wrong. He could have just bitched out her. He gave her a little chance when he was aiming that shit. Stop. She ain't stop. You know what I'm saying? He not wrong. She wrong for what she did, but she obviously got something mental going on, so it ain't like she just fucked up, I guess.
Officer Liu has been placed on restricted duty status, pending the outcome of an investigation looking into the incident. As far as I can tell, this is standard procedure and doesn't indicate that he is in any trouble. Now, some people have attempted to paint this as a racial police killing, stating that Sydney should have been tased and not shot, and that she was only shot because of the colour of her skin. However, there are other instances of such cases happening where the one killed was white. Leah Baker is a case that springs to mind. Leah did the same thing. She was mentally ill and she charged an officer with a knife. She was dealt with in the same manner, arguably even more brutally, as by the end of the encounter with the police, Leah's intestines were hanging out and a police dog was ripping into her skin. She too later died from her injuries. To draw such a conclusion so early on into the investigation does nobody any good and only inflames tensions. The purpose of this video is to give some background to the people involved in this now viral clip. From looking at Sydney's background, it seems that she really wasn't in the right state of mind and was clearly having an intense breakdown. It's understandable that people are angry because a human being was killed, and they perhaps naively believe that they would react differently in that situation, and that they would somehow find a way to disarm Sydney without killing her. But it's important to remember that tasers don't always work. She put the life of an officer in danger, and she was very close to killing him. The case of Sydney Wilson has really seemed to divide people on what the appropriate response should have been. I can imagine that the comment section on this video will be filled with such debate.
Yeah, people always like to, even me, like to always say what they would do, or like, oh, I would have did this. Like, life ain't never like that simple, you know? Like, you can't just say, oh, I'm gonna do this, especially if it's something you've never been through. You can't just say, when this happened, I'm gonna react like this. And like, no, you know? Like, but RP to that girl though, you feel me? Make sure, like, make sure you really get your shit together, like, mentally, you know? Like, it ain't gonna be instant shit. It's gonna be slow, you know? Make sure you trying, cause like, the world needs you type shit, you know? I don't know who watching this, if anybody is, but like, the world needs you type shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's fucked up out here. But shit, until next time, like and subscribe, and shit, I'm out.